Alistair Weaver here for Edmunds with a staple of American life. Thanksgiving turkey, Monday night football and the Toyota Camry. This is the 9th generation 2025 Camry that'll go on sale next year, priced from around $30,000. And it'll do battle with old favourites like the Honda Accord and pesky upstarts including the Kia K5, which is currently Edmunds' top-ranked mid-size sedan. Let's get on with it. Let's start with what Toyota at least believes is the Camry's trump card. This latest generation is hybrid only. It's a similar system to that found in the latest generation of the Prius, but here in the Camry, it has more capacity, 2.5 litre compared to the Prius's 2 litre. In front-wheel drive, guys, you get 225 horsepower, which is more than the Honda Accord hybrid and a lot more than the non-hybrid Kia K5. And if you opt for all-wheel drive, you get a third electric motor. So all of them have 2 electric motors in the front. If you go all-wheel drive, you get a third one in the rear to provide some extra traction when you need it. And that actually takes the horsepower up from 225 to 232. Toyota expects all-wheel drive to account for maybe 15–20% of sales, somewhere in that region. It is a shame though that having spent all that money on the hybrid system, Toyota obviously couldn't afford to put in a proper hydraulic strut. That is distinctly old school. So we're getting our first glance at the new Camry on a dark and surprisingly cold night in Southern California. And what can we tell you? Well, Toyota is saying that this is an all-new generation, the 9th, but in reality, it's actually a heavy rework of the old model. What they have done is update the styling quite comprehensively. As you can see, there's a lot of influence from the latest generation Prius. These 2 vehicles behind me are both high trims. We've got an XLE here, an XSE here, and the idea is that you've got 2 discrete model lines, one that focuses more on conservative luxury and one that brings out the NASCAR vibe with a bit more sporting appeal. You can see this sort of honeycomb effect down here. LED headlights are now standard across the range, and it's nice to see these pretty distinctive daytime running lights here as well. Surely if you want to have a walk with me down the flanks of the car, you get a 2-tone roof here on the XSE, which kind of visually lowers the whole car. I'm still a big fan of sedans. I mean, the whole world has turned to SUV, but I still like the proportions of a sedan. At the rear, on the high trim models, you now have LED rear tail lamps, but not on the entry-level cars. They're more traditional. But one thing you do get on this XSE, look at this, you get a rear diffuser for all that road-hugging downforce. Perfect for the 405. It was inside that the old Camry was really starting to show its age, and this new one is a big improvement. Toyota says it was inspired by ocean waves, whatever that means. But what I say is, when you put them side by side, it looks remarkably similar to the Kia K5. If you sort of invert these air vents, then you've got a very, very similar aesthetic and a very, very similar layout. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, and it certainly feels a lot more upmarket than the old cars, particularly in these higher trim versions. Here you get a 12.3-inch touchscreen and a fully digital display. If you go for the entry-level trims, which frankly are going to be the biggest sellers, then you get a smaller screen and a partial digital display. What else do we like? Well, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard in wireless form. It's nice to see a phone charger standard on every trim, and plenty of oddment storage, including a pretty big bin here between the seats, cup holders. Of course, this is a Camry. Toyota's worked hard to address some of the key criticisms of the old Camry. If you go to a high trim model, you now get laminated glass, so we should see an improvement in the wind and road noise, which was a problem in the old car. And they've also comprehensively redesigned the seats, which can be heated and ventilated if you wish. They've also, as you can see in this XSE, gone for a very kind of extrovert, sporty aesthetic, includes pretty garish red leather. But if you go for the XLE, you get a kind of different aesthetic treatment, a little bit more conservative and arguably a little bit more luxurious. Interior space has always been a big part of the Camry's appeal, and this latest model is certainly no different. As you can see, I'm lounging in considerable comfort despite my 6'4" frame. Plenty of legroom and decent headroom too, despite this panoramic glass roof. And there's plenty of room for your luggage in the trunk too. For a vehicle that's very much focused on families, it's also good to see a decent lineup of safety kit, including adaptive cruise control and a pedestrian detection system. This latest Camry might not be all new in a traditional sense, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You right a few wrongs and don't mess with a winning formula. Even in a world obsessed with SUVs, Toyota should still sell around 300,000 of these a year in the US, which, let's face it, is a lot. I've no doubt that Camry loyalists will be enthralled with the latest version of their steed, but will the changes be enough to unseat the Kia K5 as Edmunds' top-ranked mid-size sedan? Well, we'll have to drive it early in the new year to find out. Time for some apple pie.